Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our vendor training for municipalities. For those of you that don't know, my name is Henry Lowry. I'm the vendor analyst here at IHCDA. You might have heard from me once or twice. Just some housekeeping. So please stay on mute throughout all of this. And if you have a question, please use the hand raise function. We'll call on you. You can come off mute and then ask away. You're also welcome to use the chat at any time. We'll have multiple locations throughout this presentation to stop for questions. And then at the end as well, we'll have a Q&A space. So feel free to get them in wherever, and then we'll try and answer them as they come. So, but yeah, with that, let's get started. So today we're just going to cover some successes of PY 2024, some upcoming program changes that should be pretty exciting for everybody. We'll go over some common questions and issues that we've been seeing throughout the years, and go over some contact rules and protocols, and then we'll have space for that Q&A. So, right. So just some stats from last year as we're kind of wrapping everything up. So, last year we served 122,000 Hoosiers with those average claims there. I think you can see just kind of the average amounts for the households and see that these are not world-changing amounts, right? But for some people, they can be. So if you're at risk, these can be world-changing amounts. So we're doing important work here. So you can see what kind of vulnerable households we're assisting and what percentage of those go into the program as well. So yeah, a lot of good stuff happening. Okay, so this year we have some key changes to the dates, but more so at the end. So let's go over these real quick. So October 1st is our opening day of PY 2025. That's when the application goes public. And then all of our local agencies, our LSPs, distribute their mail-in applications to households who do not qualify as at risk. On November 1st, that's when they can begin their in-person appointments. And then that would be the very first day that you could possibly see transmittals as a utility vendor. And then also that's when applicant notification letters are sent to clients. So December 1st, that is the beginning of moratorium protection, the shutoff protection for those that don't know. And then that runs through March 15th. And yes, all the shutoff protection, December 1st through March 15th, very important. April 14th is going to be the end of the EAP application period. This is actually a month short, okay? And we'll go over that a little bit here coming up. By April 20, I believe that's 26th or 28th, I can't read that. All incomplete EAP applications must be fully processed. By May 12th, we want that to be the last day for transmittals. And then by May, I believe that's also 26, all vendors must be fully reconciled. So that will be our upcoming season. So a little bit different than last year. So kind of go over that a little bit. So we're shortening the season. That's going to be by 1 month. So that will run through April 14th. And that is to prepare ourselves for what is potentially a tech system changeover. So some of you might have seen my news about this that I sent out. This is an ongoing process. I don't have a lot of news about this just yet. I will keep everybody updated as I can. But, we're potentially looking at a changeover, and, we want to make sure that all of this season is wrapped up by the 14th or by the dates that we set in order to make that sort of change possible. So I'll get you guys news as soon as I can. And then due to likely funding delays, which we saw this year pretty severely, I think we want to set the expectation that the vendor should not expect payments until December. So at the earliest. And that should give the federal government enough time to get the payment, get the money to us, and then for us to get the money to our agencies, and then therefore that money last goes to the vendors, and then of course the clients. So let's set that expectation here. But yeah. So a few more changes. So we've made some structural changes to our benefit matrix. And that's because over the last few years, there's been an overall decrease in federal funding. So we've changed that benefit calculation. We currently estimate that that reduction is going to be about an average of $200. And if this is going to impact any of your internal programs, please reach out to me and I can help you answer questions, guide you through the new benefit matrix, and get you those answers. So we've made some big changes to our maximum credit balance. So metered utilities now, a $250 or more credit on a client account will make them ineligible for monetary benefits during the season. So moratorium will still be applied for those clients. We will be having more details coming soon about clients that are on budget plans. So some of those details are still being hammered out. So, yep. And then we don't need to go over the bulk fuel, but some of those changes for our credits right there. Okay. Does anybody have questions over those upcoming changes? Just a reminder, you please use the hand function and or you can use the chat. Yeah. Moving on. So I've compiled some of the most common questions that we've received. Oh, I'm sorry. But let's start with the municipality policy, and then we'll go into some common questions and issues. So this is one that we get pretty often. So for our municipality policy, so we understand that municipal entities are under different regulations than investor-owned, privately owned, or cooperatively owned utility providers, and that your state board of accounts regulations preclude you from recording a monetary benefit to your register prior to the receipt of the actual payment. So in spite of this, we do have a responsibility to ensure that all approved EAP applicants are receiving equitable treatment. So therefore, in lieu of the requirement in the MOA that benefits are assessed to an approved applicant's account at the time of transmittal receipt, we're asking that municipal vendors incorporate a solution that achieves the same end result without running afoul of your state board of accounts requirements and GAAP. So due to the State Board of Accounts requirements that supersede our MOA, municipalities will be exempt from the requirement to assess the benefits to a customer's account upon receipt of the transmittal. So municipal vendors must ensure that the benefit amount is noted to an account at the time of that transmittal receipt, and even if it is not applied at that time. So municipal vendors must ensure that any penalties assessed to a customer's account following a transmittal confirming a benefit are only assessed against the account balance remaining in excess of the benefit. So for instance, if an applicant has a $300 balance and you receive a pledge for $200 and the applicant fails to pay the next bill, penalties may only be assessed against the $100 balance that exceeds the pending benefit. So municipal vendors should find a way to note on a customer's bill that the municipality has been informed of a pending benefit and that will be reflected on the bill upon receipt of the payment. And then this will help with transparency for your customers and should result in greater peace of mind for low-income customers, and then reduce communication between the customer and both you, the vendor, and the local agency or IHCDA concerning the status of the benefit. So a best practice recommendation would be that this note includes both the total amount of the benefit and the date on which the transmittal of the benefit was received. Okay, I know I just kind of rushed through that municipality policy. Do we have any questions on that? Okay, okay, all righty. let's move on. Okay, so the overpayment and refund summary sheet. So this is probably the number one question I've gotten over the past year. So what do you do with a check that is returning to IHCDA? So we require all checks that are returned, all refunds that are returned or overpayments that are returned to IHCDA include this overpayment and refund summary form. These forms make it really easy and uniform for vendors to provide our required information. It helps our claims and fiscal stack in tracking and accounting for the return benefits. It ensures the funds are applied to the correct grant. And then, the obvious aim of this is to reduce public taxpayer funds. So using these forms speeds up benefit transfers when applicants move from one utility provider to another. And this form is found on our resource page, which I will be linking and sending out. It's pretty simple. Here's what it looks like. And just include this with every check. If for some reason you forget to include this with the check, you can also email this to me. And then I can get it over to our operations team. I've had plenty of people do that over the season. So, but try and get it to us somehow. If you forget one way, let's get it the other. Okay. This would be the number 2 question, unallowable expenses. So EAP funds may not be applied to deposit fees, commercial business accounts, garbage, water, or sewer bills, unsafe heating devices, service or insurance plans, repayment of fraud or theft, tampering charges, or any other optional service or expense not directly related to residential energy consumption or delivery. So in general, EAP funds are supposed to provide a continuing service. So a vendor may not accept EAP funds for a closed or inactive account and apply them to an outstanding amount owed unless that account will be restored. So this list is not exhaustive. It is not complete. We're still building this out. We've expanded it a little bit this year. So I would actually encourage, if you have any questions about this, in a situation comes up, please just shoot me an email and then we can go over and make a decision about it. Talk it over, and then we can actually add that to the list. So please don't be afraid to send me an email. Okay. Another question we get is about cooperation and data sharing. So when all our vendors sign the MOA, you agree to share energy information with not only IHCDA, but also the local service provider. So that includes energy consumption and costs, payment information, disconnect prevention and restoration of service info, arrearage amounts, account status, and any other data related to EAP. This data is federally mandated, which means we can ask for it at any time, but this also allows you to share it to the local agency on behalf of your client. So if your attorneys are asking questions, you can show them the MOA where it does show this, or you can always contact me. So we had a few of those questions this year. Does anybody have questions on these common issues? Moving right along here today. All right, so let's go over some moratorium. Okay, so for those that don't know, a moratorium is our shutoff protection law. So this is an Indiana code. This is not our policy necessarily. This is the state law. So it ensures that electric and or gas utility service is continued while eligibility is being determined for persons applying for LIHEAP assistance. So this is effective from December 1st through March 15th of every year. And it applies to utility vendors who supply electricity or gas service. And then that also includes municipally owned, privately owned, or co-op owned vendors. So there's a few instances where you can terminate client services. So that's upon request of the client. If there's dangerous or hazardous situations, upon any order of the court, IURC, or any other public authority. If there's fraud or unauthorized use detected and you have reasonable grounds to believe the customer is responsible for this, If the utility's regulating or measuring equipment has been tampered with, and the utility has reasonable grounds to believe the customer is responsible for that. And just a general rule of thumb is if you run into these situations where you're going to shut somebody off that has moratorium protection, it's best to just loop us in, loop the agency in, because we're the ones that are going to get the questions from your client. So it's important that we're all above board on this so it doesn't escalate. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so utility vendors and LSPs, our local agencies, need to have great communication to foster productive relationships to comply effectively with the moratorium requirements. So our local agencies should be contacting our vendors to extend moratorium protection prior to eligibility determination, which means as soon as the client puts in an application. However, you as vendors are more likely to hear from your client first that they've applied. So clients should be given moratorium protection if they tell you that they've submitted an application. Vendors should trust the client and then verify with the local agency. And one of the things that we're going to go into a little bit later, but our vendor portal now has a list of all clients that have applied for energy assistance, which means, if they've selected you as their utility, they show up in the list as long as they've submitted a complete application. So local service providers have 14 business days to complete application processing for in-person appointments and 55 calendar days to complete application processing for any other application method. So you can see that's kind of like the 55 days can get up there. So in time, so it's important to extend that protection as early as possible. So trust but verify. So the local agency should notify the vendor when EAP eligibility has been determined so that a pledge can be entered or moratorium protection could be terminated in the case that they're not eligible for LIHEAP funds. Vendors may contact the local service provider to inquire about the status of an application that has been placed under moratorium protection while eligibility was being determined, especially if more than 10 days have elapsed since projected determination date. So some vendors just extend this protection at the beginning of the EAP season. The law does not require that, but we do appreciate that commitment to your clients. So, yeah. And then we have some space for some questions about this. So, yeah, okay, we got one in the chat from Sarah. So Sarah asked, should we be monitoring that website or wait to hear from the local service provider? So you can do both, right? So the website, because it's live, it means you can check immediately if a client tells you that they've applied. So it's a really quick way to go on there. Might save you a phone call, might save you a set of emails. It would save our agency's time as well. So in general, we highly recommend that you do use our vendor portal. And again, we'll kind of go into that a little bit later for some of those other benefits, but that would be a great reason to use it. So otherwise, you can contact the agency to verify. Either way, yeah. Any other questions on moratorium? Okay. Let's go over our transmittal process a little bit. Okay, our transmittals, they serve as our official record of the benefit for which clients have been approved. If there's ever a discrepancy between the pledges you've received from your agency and the amount on the transmittal account is the official amount, and it is the correct amount. So transmittals are not valid for payment until they've been signed by both the representative from the agency and a representative from the vendor. And then any changes made to the transmittal need to be made before you both sign it. So all our local agencies have been instructed to ensure that the transmittals are generated and sent on at least a weekly basis. So it is your responsibility as a utility vendor to fully review that transmittal before signing it. That review should include the accuracy that the client is one of your customers, that their name, service address, and account numbers are correct, and that their account is currently active and not scheduled for shutoff at the customer's request. So if there are any errors or on any accounts that need to be removed, it's your responsibility to mark those changes directly on the transmittal and adjust the total amount if necessary before signing and returning it to the local service agency. So that would be if you're filling it out through email. If you're actually using our vendor portal, it's just a few clicks. So, and then it automatically removes them from the transmittal. And I would also suggest contacting your agency about why you're removing those clients as well. So you are expected to return those transmittals within 7 days. And pledges must be applied at the time of transmittal. So some vendors have agreements with their LSPs to deliver. This is a moot point because this is the municipality training. So very good. Let's move on. Okay, so there are times when overpayments do occur. Overpayments can happen when there's been an error made in the benefit or eligibility determination, or the local service agency decided to award the client additional funds. So in this case, they might need to submit a negative transmittal. So when you receive a negative transmittal, you follow the same exact transmittal procedure. And after returning the signed negative transmittal to the local service agency, the vendor will also sign the overpayment remittance. And then the signed overpayment remittance is to be sent in with a check to IHCDA to be reinvested back in the program. So at that point, you are justified to pass charges onto the customer after returning any funds. So some of the reasons those can happen is an applicant was accidentally awarded more funds than they were eligible for, or they were approved for benefits when they were in fact not eligible, and then therefore any delinquency caused by the removal of an overpayment from the customer's account becomes the customer's responsibility. Okay. So in order to keep payments on time and not negatively impact customers and clients, we are asking all vendors to return your signed transmittals to local service agencies within 1 week of receipt. So claim notification emails note which transmittals have been approved for payment and the total of each transmittal. So those come from reset@ihcda.in.gov. So you use those emails in conjunction with the transmittals reports for the purposes of correctly distributing funds and reconciling claims. So please remember that no LIHEAP funds are ever to be released back to the customer. All unused funds are to be sent back to IHCDA within 60 days of an account closing. So to double back here to this reset@IHCDA email, if you are not receiving these, please contact me. That is very important information. And if you have changes in your staff and you need that information spread out, please contact me and we can get those updated. So. And then just keep that in mind throughout this season. If you do have changeover, as is inevitable everywhere, please let me know, and then I can keep making sure that information is getting to the right place. Okay. Any questions on transmittals? Okay. Very good. Let's move on. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what our vendor portal is. So our vendor portal allows all your transmittals to be sent, edited, signed, returned, and monitored all online. And this is actually an extension of our application system for our clients. So it's all in one system. It now lists all your clients that have applied as soon as they submit their application. And anytime you have a new transmittal ready, it still sends you a notification email. So you don't have to worry about missing out, anything like that. You don't have to stay logged in all the time. But it can be a great way for build some efficiency. So you do have to opt into this. So you have to send me an email and we can talk about how to get you access. It's fairly easy. You can send that to the vendors at ihcda.in.gov email inbox that I monitor. You can send it directly to me. And I have some pretty simple training guides, and I can also help you troubleshoot as well. So this is a great way to get some efficiency in your processes. Um, it's secure, which means you're not sending important client information over email. Um, things don't get lost. You can have multiple users all in one monitoring it. There's a lot of benefits to this. So please let me know if this is something that interests you, and I'm happy to help get you set up. And then we'll also let all the agencies know as well so they can switch to it. I would also add that if you're using this, if you actually have access to this and you're getting any pushback from our local agencies, you need to please let me know. They know that that they need to use this if it's requested of them. Otherwise, they'll continue using the same processes that they've been using. So if you get pushback, just let me know, and then I can help with that. So, all right. So some changes to our vendor guide and some other resources. So we have completely changed our vendor guide. Pretty proud of our team, spent a lot of time on this. We now kind of encourage everybody to use this guide if you have a question about policies or procedures. It's perfect for new participants or common questions. And it is on our resource page. So we really wanted to create a document that basically, if you were brand new to this program, you could walk in, look at this document, and have a pretty good idea of how this program works. So it does have common questions, common issues and solutions. So I'd love everybody to take a look at it and give me your harsh feedback. I'd appreciate that. So yeah, that's going to be on our resource page. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about vendor monitoring and our performance measures. So vendor monitoring. So the purpose of vendor monitoring is to ensure compliance with the LIHEAP program by the utility vendor. It is also an opportunity to improve processes and let us know where areas of confusion or additional assistance are needed. So vendor monitoring is a federally mandated component of the LIHEAP statute and is indicated in the MOA. And then all vendors that participate in the state of Indiana's LIHEAP program are subject to vendor monitoring. So monitoring is conducted as a desktop review by the vendor analyst, which is me. And this is kind of the process. So you are sent a 30-day letter notifying you of when the session begins. You are required to submit requested documentation prior to the start of the monitoring session, and also complete an energy utility supplier survey. And then all vendors that are being monitored receive an assessment completion report 30 days after completing the desktop review. So don't go into a whole lot of details of what kind of questions are on here. It's all pretty straightforward. It's all data that you already have. Nothing too crazy. So but some best practices for this. So all vendors should create written processes to promote consistency and program integrity. So in turn, those processes are submitted at the time of monitoring to show the utilities processes and program compliance. All vendors should perform internal quality assurance audits on each customer accounts. All vendors should create a system to ensure that unallowable expenses are not being paid using EAP funds. And then all vendors should create a 3-year record retention and destruction policy for all EAP documentation, including the electronic documentation. So all vendors should strive to meet all the reporting deadlines, and then this allows IHCDA to fulfill our federal reporting requirements and then make effective program changes. So that's during this monitoring session is when we kind of, especially during our survey, this is how we get into your processes and learn more about them and learn what's working, what's not working, get feedback about the program, and then that in turn lets us make good decisions. So it's very helpful. Okay, so performance measures. So collection of performance measures data is mandated by the LIHEAP statute as well. So every year we go around and we ask several vendors to submit performance measures data, which includes providing annual energy usage and cost for all customers who have received LIHEAP benefits. And then we cross-reference that data with our annual income calculations. So the purpose of that is to demonstrate a reduction of energy burden, which is one of our requirements, and then it assists us in crafting effective policy. Okay, kind of ran through those a little bit. Do we have any questions about monitoring, performance measure requirements, or any of the above? All right. Quiet group today. Okay, let's move on. So we got a few more resources for you. Okay, so let's talk about 211 a little bit. So if you don't know, 211 is a statewide phone number that everybody can call to get assistance and to find local resources around them. So if you have struggling clients, referring them to 211 is a great way to get them access to EAP resources and then other local resources as well. So 211 can assist your clients with starting an EAP application over the phone. This is something that I believe we've only had for a couple of years now. This is a great function for people who struggle with computers, who do not have access to computers. They can just go ahead and complete their application over the phone. They will still have to submit some documentation to their local agency, but it's a great way to get started. So just some quick do's and don'ts about 211. So 211 does not have access to anybody's completed applications or their statuses once they're submitted. So all those questions should be directed to the local agency. 211 also does not do any of the processing of the applications. They only take the answers and then submit them to the agency. So if you have a client that is struggling about their status, you want to always refer them back to their local agency. Not IHCDA, not 211, because that's going to just send them in a circle, and that's going to be really frustrating for a client. So try to get them referred always back to their agency. Okay, just a couple more things. So information on your vendor websites. So some vendors have this and some don't. This is something that we're highly encouraging, that you have some links to and information about energy assistance on your website. That's generally going to be probably the first place your clients go when they need help. And we just ask that if you do currently have information, that you verify that that is correct, that it has accurate links. Maybe those are links to your local agencies. Maybe they're a link to call 211, or maybe it's a link to our application page when that goes live. So those would be accurate. Don't just necessarily link it back to IHCDA. That's not very helpful, but there's some stuff we can work on. So if you have questions or want to work on that, you can always shoot me a message and we can talk about that. So along with that, we also have a vendor marketing toolkit on our resource page. And this one's a little outdated, so don't get too into details on this. It's being updated right now. And basically, you can use this, send it out to your clients, put it in your office, wherever it can reach people. So we've prepped all this stuff for you already. You just have to take use of it. Okay, let's go over some contact protocols. So we've got this handy chart here. So who should you contact? So your local agency should always take questions about specific clients or households, questions about a specific benefit, questions about submission of a transmittal, confirming application statuses, as well as using the vendor portal, notification of suspected customer tampering or unauthorized use when the customer is an EAP client or applicant. When should you contact the IHCDA? When you have questions about payments that you're unable to answer after you review your transmittals and your claim approval emails from reset@IHCDA. Questions about moratorium or MOA terms. General issues with the LSPs. Any follow-up on a refund or energy benefit transfer. And then suspicion of fraud or misconduct at a local agency level. So This is actually something that we caught this year, that a vendor found some issues with a local service provider, and we were able to conduct a pretty successful investigation of that. And so this is something we want to keep an eye on. We want to protect our program. We want to protect these federal dollars and protect our clients. So we appreciate that. And then for assistance for clients, all referrals to LIHEAP from vendors should be made to the appropriate local service agency or 211. So, and we link that there. All right. Just a couple do's and don'ts. So clients should never be referred to IHCDA directly. They should be sent to their local agency for for all their questions. We do have a dedicated vendor inbox here for you as a vendor. It's just vendors@ihcda.in.gov. You may still hear from the EAP inbox as well. But just generally speaking, if you're in doubt, just CC me. Make sure that if you're having issues with your local service agency, with your local service provider, if you're you just have questions, whatever it might be, I just highly encourage you to just loop me in on it. So. Yeah. So this is going to be our Q&A section. So please feel free to put questions in the chat, raise your hand, whatever it might be. We'll give this one a second. Lots of changes upcoming this year, so. Okay, we have a question in the chat that said, Elizabeth asks, will the previous information on the EAP Connect vendor portal be cleared out from previous years? So Elizabeth, we actually got this question yesterday as well, and we are looking into that, and we're going to try and find some answers for you. So we're not actually quite sure. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not a great answer, but I'll definitely have some information going out. One thing I haven't mentioned is that I will be sending out all these cards, all these recordings. They will be hosted on our resource page as well. I'll link that in the email as well. And then, and I'll try and get those answers about the portal too before then. So probably expect that sometime next week. Stacy has a question.
Yeah, sorry, the chat's not working on our end for some reason. We do have a question. If a customer has received benefits for 2024 and they have a remainder, because some of our clients have quite a bit of a remainder, what is the maximum? So let's say it's under that $200 threshold. Let's say it's $150, and they then receive another benefit in 2025. Is there a maximum benefit that they can have?
Correct me if I'm wrong here, Tom. There is not a maximum benefit.
That's correct. Yeah. So if as long as their credit balance at the time that that they apply is under 250, whatever they are eligible for, we're going to award. Now, if that creates a huge balance and they go into 2026 and their credit balance is now above 250, then that's going to be kind of their cool down year where they're not going to be able to get that release of that benefit that year, and that will help bring them more on track.
Okay, perfect. And then just to clarify, there will not be any LIWOP this year, correct?
That is correct.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So we have another question in the chat. Is the vendor portal pretty user-friendly? So great question. I actually think the vendor portal is pretty user-friendly. It's very simple and effective in its approach. It's not there's not a lot going on. It's only a couple buttons. It puts everything right in front of you. So we do have a transmittal walkthrough for it, just in case you need that. But yeah, overall, it's a pretty simple website. So. And Elizabeth asks, so if a member is carrying a $500 credit from last year, they cannot apply. So the client can apply. So we have to be very careful here on how we phrase this. So the client can still apply and be eligible for the energy assistance program. But because of that credit, they will not receive a monetary benefit, but they will still receive moratorium protection throughout the year because they're an energy assistance applicant. Okay.
I would also like to add to that just because they have a $500 credit with one utility doesn't necessarily mean that they have a credit on their other utility, and they might actually qualify for a benefit on that other utility. But yeah, to Henry's point, we do actually have a federal obligation not to restrict anyone from applying. So that's kind of why we're so careful about the way we use language around things like that. We don't want to be seen as discouraging or preventing anyone from applying.
Yeah. And I would definitely say, yeah, please encourage your clients regardless of their credit balance. Please encourage them to apply. So Katrina asks, is a client protected under moratorium if they owe well over the awarded amount? I'm not sure I understand this question, Tom.
So the way I'm understanding this is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm understanding this to be like, what if a person has an account where they're in arrears and they owe like, $1,000 and they're getting an award of $200. So in that case, yes, the moratorium language as it's drafted in Indiana code is pretty unambiguous about this, and it doesn't get into amounts. It just says that as long as someone qualifies for this program and has been approved for this, or has applied for this program and is judged to qualify for the program, then they do receive that protection from December 1st through March 15th at 11:59 p.m. Now, March 16th, all bets are off, but that protection is kind of legislatively required during that time frame. And also, I want to point out with that December 1st date, that kind of also depends on when they apply, right? So if someone applies on November 3rd and they're deemed to be eligible, they can be shut off between November 3rd and December 1st. But once December 1st hits, since they've been deemed eligible for the year, that protection kicks in. If someone doesn't apply until December 15th, but you're going to disconnect them on December 3rd, they can still be disconnected on December 3rd because they have not yet applied. That protection kind of the submission of the application is what triggers the start of that protection. Unless they apply before December 1st, in which case December 1st is going to trigger the start of that protection. I hope that made sense.
I think it did. Thanks, Tom. Let's get some hands. So Kim Harvey. Kim, you had to come off mute if you want to ask a question. We can come back. We can come back. So Stacy Anderson.
Sorry. Gail is with me and she just wanted me to clarify the difference between a credit balance and a benefit, a credit balance and a benefit weighting. So when they have a credit balance, she looks at that as their credit account on their account is for what they have paid, or they're on budget bill and they've overpaid. So the question that we just need clarified is the $250 credit including both a credit balance that they've paid and EAP balance, or one or the other? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I would say that does because once we award that benefit and pay it out to you, it's in their account. So I would definitely say both. So if we,
Okay.
if someone say, I know, and what utility are you with?
Washington Utilities,
What county is that?
Davies.
David, I thought it was in that area. So you're probably good. I know that we have some agencies that that ran out of funding and did not necessarily communicate that to us proactively. And also we had delays in the release of funding from the federal government. So we've been struggling to get them the funding they needed in order to get those benefits out. So we actually have some utility or some agencies in other parts of the state that are still waiting on funding that actually just kind of figure out, we're getting them out to them now. But basically their utilities are still waiting on payments to client accounts. And so, those clients, some of them probably have some pretty hefty crisis benefits on them, and those clients probably have a real risk of possibly being put over that $250 mark by the benefits that are going to be coming in. Which is an unfortunate situation for those applicants. But we want to be consistent with this and to kind of look at how are we going to serve more people with static funding from the federal government. So that's kind of why we're implementing this policy.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Kim Harvey, if you'd like to ask your question, just you can come off mute.
Okay, so can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. My problem is the same. We didn't receive funding for a lot of customers until July. The majority of those customers are senior citizens who live in all electric apartments who applied in October. They faithfully paid their bill all winter long, waiting on that benefit. Most of them receive $450 to $500 for their benefit. I don't think it's fair to say, okay, well, you're not going to get your benefit again next year because you have this credit. Because they did what they were supposed to do in October. You didn't pay their bills until July. So that's not their fault that they have all that credit. And they're scared to death that they don't want to get behind. So they faithfully paid the bill. And I don't think they should have to miss out on funding because that's not their fault.
Yeah, I do hear you. Like I said, we do have a policy that we set. We do have to be consistent in how we apply it. I will say for those applicants who are in that position, we don't have much direct communication with applicants. With it being only a handful of us serving over 100,000 Hoosiers, it's kind of impossible for us to have that direct connection. I will say that I think that the local agencies who are responsible for processing those applications and for sending those transmittals to us to get paid, as well as you as a utility probably have the best connections to those applicants to be able to communicate. We have told the local agencies that they can absolutely kind of do blanket communications, advising people if they have a benefit that it may behoove them to wait until that benefit goes down before they apply. If you wanted to, if you had
see,
a
these
method.
people received letters saying
Mhm.
they had been approved in January.
Right.
Okay, we didn't get the transmittals until the end of July.
Right.
And then we got paid 2 weeks later. So, we're just now giving them their benefit.
Sure.
That's not their fault. They were told that they got a benefit and were looking for it all winter long.
Yeah. So I would actually add here, because we hear this concern, and it's legitimate, that some of the changes, like shortening the season a month, as well as some changes on the back end, is to avoid having where we're paying out benefits over the summer. So that's some of the timelines that we're trying to shore up because of the funding delays, to make sure that this doesn't happen again. So we know this year was kind of, I hope it's a one-off. I suppose I can't promise that it's a one-off, but yeah, we hear these concerns for sure. And we're trying to make changes to alleviate those. Thank you. Shikanda Watson.
I just want to confirm if the details regarding the $250 credit will be in the vendor guide. I haven't reviewed it. I'll say that just for a place of reference, because I know I have an understanding, and I just want to repeat it back as well to confirm any credit balance, whether it comes from energy assistance, if the customer is overpaid, if they have a $250 credit balance, then they will, if they meet all other requirements, then they will be approved. However, they won't receive a monetary benefit. So they will be protected under the moratorium. Okay, I just want to make sure that I can review that again and share it with my direct leaders in the vendor guide as well.
Yes, that is in the vendor guide. And we will also be sending out some direction on budget plans that are in regards to this. And that policy is not quite done yet. So there will be more details about this that I'll send out as soon as possible. So
perfect.
Hopefully
Thank
within
you
the next
so much.
couple of weeks. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great questions, everybody. Thank you so much. Let's go back to the chat here. So I think, did we get Heather? So are customer credits and energy assistance credits handled differently, or the grand total of all credits on the account used to determine eligibility?
Would you, Heather, would you be able to kind of expand on that question? I just want to be sure I'm answering the question that I think that you're asking.
I think this falls kind of in line with customers who are on budget, or people that try to maybe pay ahead a little bit to make sure that when the winter bills get here, they can afford to pay them. So some of our customers have a credit of their own money, but then they still may have energy assistance money sitting out there from last year that hasn't been used up yet. So I think from what I've heard, it is the combination of all credits on the account. If it exceeds $250, then they would not be eligible. Is that correct?
That is correct. We are address, we do want to address the energy assistance credits that are still remaining, because we've definitely seen instances where kind of like people are kind of almost hoarding those energy assistance credits and racking up hundreds, or frankly, I've seen four figures worth of energy assistance credits racked up. So we want to be sure that when we're awarding these benefits, these taxpayer-funded benefits, that they are being put to use immediately, and by people who have who both meet the qualifications and have that immediate need for that assistance. I do want to say a word about the budget billing. So if you have a budget billing plan available, and it kind of functions in a way where it's it kind of determines how much if it kind of works almost on an arrearage basis, where it's kind of like, okay, this is how much this person is expected to use through the year, and here's how much we're going to charge them per month, but here's where their actual usage is. None of that is going to count towards this. If there's kind of like this almost like accrued usage versus budget amount, we're not going to take that into account. But on the other hand, if under that budget plan, they're being asked to pay $58 a month, and they're going to pay $100, then each month that would kind of accrue $42 more worth of credit more. So we would want to look at how much they've actually paid in excess of what they were expected to pay, if that makes sense. So we're only looking at the actual real dollars that are there in excess, not anything that's kind of part of a budget of expected usage.
Okay. And then I have another question.
Yeah.
We have electric and gas, and some of our customers, well, typically the brunt of the assistance goes towards gas, correct? But we have some customers that their primary heating source is electric, but they do have some gas appliances. So we put the money on the accounts the way that the transmittals are provided to us. They may end up with a large gas amount that is being carried forward because they don't use the gas for their heating source. So what do you do in that instance? We've been leaving it alone. Where you tell us to put it is where we put it. But now that may make people ineligible because they still have a gas credit on their account that exceeds $250.
So it sounds like that's a case where whether it's a case of the applicant misreporting what their actual heating source is, or whether it's a case of the subrecipient actually entering the data wrong into the application. It sounds like one way or the other, something's being miscoded there. I would say when you notice things like that, I would bring it up with the subrecipient so that we can get it fixed proactively. As far as what we're going to do about existing issues, I'll be honest, I don't have an answer for that right now.
I think we're going to cross that bridge when we come to it. But yeah, definitely communicate those to your agency. Yeah.
Would it be acceptable to transfer those balances now from electric to the credits from electric or from gas to electric to get it used up before we're into the application process?
As long as we get some kind of verification that yes, your heating source actually is electric and not gas, I would not necessarily be opposed to that plan. I think it would be in keeping with the spirit of what our policy is, since our policy is to give the bulk of the benefit to the primary heating source. And I think that it would help us make sure that those benefits actually went to the use that they were congressionally earmarked for.
So what would you require us to provide? Are we providing it to you, or are we providing it to the LSP?
Honestly, I think you would just need to keep record of it internally in case of, but honestly, this is kind of your own internal bookkeeping. We gave you the benefits. We already paid out the benefits. and we ask you to apply them. You applied them according to the way the subrecipient told you to apply them. It just sounds like in these cases, either the applicant or the subrecipient got it wrong. And so you're just kind of almost making a correction in post. So yeah, so I think that since we've kind of closed our books on it, I don't think we would need anything. We would just need you to keep record of that just in case, Henry does vendor monitoring, and we're expecting Health and Human Services to do a monitoring on us any year now. So and they might also kind of knock on some vendors' doors. So those records just need to be available if needed.
Understood. Thank you.
Cool.
Great
Thank you.
questions. Thank
Great
you.
question. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I've got another one in the chat here. It said, Kim asks, what if clients are shut off within the moratorium dates and then apply for EAP? Are awarded? Are we obligated to turn them back on even though they are in arrears from before they applied?
That's a great question, Kim. So if they get turned off before they apply, that moratorium does not apply retroactively. They were fairly shut off before they applied, before they were legally protected. So you're in the clear for that. As far as the second part of the question, so what we're going to do is the agency is probably going to request to know what the minimum amount is for restoration. And then what they'll do is they'll try to leverage both crisis funds and regular funds to see if we can meet that amount. If the crisis and the regular funds together do not meet that restoration amount, then what might happen is there might be some kind of negotiation of, can you restore for this amount? And if you're really not able to, then what would likely happen is we would need to have a client contribution. So for instance, let's say the customer was shut off and they owed, they had arrears of $950, and their crisis and regular benefits together equal $800, and you're not able to turn back on for $800. Then the client would have to either leverage $150 through other resources, or come up with $150 to pay you before we would be able to make a pledge for that $800. Our policies do require a guarantee of continuation of services, or restoration of services if the services are already disconnected.
Great question. Great question. So we have another question from Sarah, or we have a question from Sarah. It says, we have seen members who are on prepay electrical services receive an automatic pre-decided amount upon application. Will this happen this year also?
It's a good question. So with prepay services, we kind of treat that as kind of a hybrid of metered utility and bulk utility. So the regular benefit is it calculated exactly the same way as if it were a regular metered and traditionally billed electric utility. So we would take into account the fact that it's electric, the income, the dwelling type, et cetera, et cetera. The little nuance with the prepaid electric is we want to be sure, again, that we're giving it continuing service and that we're not having to have the client continually come back to the agency saying, I'm running low on funds again, I'm running low on funds again. We want to be sure that you guys get the payment to maintain that service without having to accrue a lot of risk with moratorium. And so the way we treat prepaid electric, rather, in terms of crisis, is as long as we look at the last 30 days, we calculate what the average daily usage is, and if their current account balance is 10 days or less worth of that average daily usage, then we're going to give them the full allotment of crisis, which for this year, for just plain electric, it's going to be $400. And if also the electric is their primary heating source, if they have an electric furnace installed in their home, then they would also get the heating portion of that crisis. So they would actually get that $800 in crisis, just to ensure that they can kind of keep going on that benefit for the rest of the heating season.
Great question. We have some space here. If anybody else has any more, feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat. While we have a second here, I just want to take a quick second here and just talk about, this is I'm going on my third season, EAP season here at IHCDA as the vendor analyst. And so I just kind of wanted to say that over the last couple of years, I've been working to try and position myself as a go-between between our utility vendors and our local service agencies. And I can't do that unless you loop me in. So I kind of stress throughout here, if you're in doubt about something, if you're having trouble, whatever it might be, just you can CC me, you can send me a message, just tell me about the situation. We can work through it, whatever it might be. But I can't help you through those struggles unless you loop me in on it. So I highly encourage that. That's what I'm here for. I'm doing my best to kind of get news out to you as much as possible, but it's got to come back to me as well. So highly encourage that. So, yeah. So thank you for attending this training. Thank you for all the hard work you've done for Hoosiers over this past year. I know this was kind of a rocky year for everybody with all the delays. We're hopefully making strides to make things a little better this upcoming year. And as always, you can contact me at the vendor's inbox. You can email me directly. I'll be sending all these trainings out and all the cards out so that these are available all year long, and they'll be on our resource page as well. But yeah, please contact me if you have any issues or questions, whatever it might be. Want to get in the vendor portal. But otherwise, I hope everybody has a great afternoon. Thank you again.
Thanks, everyone.